She's the current soldier in the U.S. Army. She has been missing since April 22nd.
Finds Vanessa Guillen
after she went missing nearly a week ago.
My sister was also sexually harassed. How can this happen on military base?
I am Vanessa Guillen. It's a hashtag
starting a larger conversation on
sexual harassment and abuse in the ranks.
And we still don't get answers as to who, what, where exactly, and why.
Missing now for 7 days.
As of today, it marks 30 days.
It's been 50 days.
There's so many gaps and holes that I am going to demand a congressional investigation.
I don't deserve this. My family does not deserve this. Vanessa Guillen did not deserve this.
Justice for
If it already happened to one soldier, my sister was the next one. Who's gonna be the third one?
Specialist Vanessa Guillen was 20 years old when she disappeared from Fort Hood military base in Texas for 2 months. 3 weeks before she disappeared, she told family and friends of her experiences at the base.
Mi mamá fue la primera en saber que mi hermana estaba siendo acosada sexualmente.
Incluso descubrimos que eran dos personas diferentes. Todavía no es seguro.
On the day she vanished, Guillen was called into work on her day off. She worked in one of the base's armory rooms. She was last seen in the parking lot of her squad's headquarters wearing a black shirt and purple leggings between 11:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. That night, she also didn't report back to her barracks. Her family was contacted after leaders failed to locate her.
Search teams looking for a missing soldier at Fort Hood, Texas, as they investigate her disappearance.
An investigation was opened after she was reported missing the next day. Guillen's family also made the trip to Fort Hood from Houston. When they arrived, they were greeted by a specialist named Aaron Robinson.
When I first went up to that base, that subject, I met him. He still had the nerve that same day to laugh in my face.
According to an affidavit on the case, Robinson was known to be the last person Guillen saw and texted on the day she vanished. A witness said Guillen visited Robinson's armory room to check serial numbers for equipment, leaving behind her keys, ID, and wallet. When interviewed by the Criminal Investigation Division on April 28th about their encounter, Robinson said he had texted her about being in his armory room. He said she later came, confirmed serial numbers, filled out paperwork, and left to what he thought was the base's motor pool. Others in the motor pool said she never showed up. As for the rest of his day, after seeing Guillen, Robinson said he went to his off-base residency he shared with his girlfriend, 22-year-old Cecily Aguilar. He said he returned to the base at 6:30 p.m. to complete computer training. On May 18th, 2 witnesses interviewed about the case said they saw Robinson pulling a large, tough box from his armory room on the day Guillen vanished. It appeared heavy and he put it in his vehicle and drove away. On May 19th, he consented to a search of his phone which showed him and Aguilar being in contact throughout the day of April 22nd. It even showed that he called her multiple times throughout the night and early morning. Without enough evidence, the Army didn't act against Robinson, and Guillen's case slipped under the Army's radar. For the next 2 months, her family, friends, and local community were the main ones talking about her.
My sister's a human being. And I want justice. And I want answers. Porque esa niña es mi vida, es mi cielo, es mi todo. We will not rest. We will not stop. And we will keep fighting until you're behind bars.
On June 19th, Aguilar was interviewed and says she was with Robinson all night between April 22nd and 23rd. When pressed about the late-night phone calls from him, she says she had lost her phone. When that was found to be a lie, she said her and Robinson went on a long drive to look at the stars in Belton, Texas. Robinson's and Aguilar's cell phone records put them there in the early hours of April 23rd along the Leon River near Belton. In a search of the area where Robinson's phone was pinged along the river, a burn site was discovered. All that was left were the remains of a plastic box. However, no human remains were found. A week later, Aguilar's story about the events of April 22nd changed again. She admitted that the stargazing story was a lie. This time, she said Robinson had hit a female soldier multiple times in the head with a hammer and killed her in his arms room. On the night in question, She said Robinson picked her up from the gas station she worked at and took her to a site near the Leon River. There, a large box with a female inside was waiting for them. Aguilar and Robinson then dismembered the body and attempted to burn it and buried its parts in 3 separate holes. Both then returned on April 26th to further cover the body with concrete. In the interview, she also called Robinson alongside investigators, and in a conversation, he never denied committing the murder. Her confession came after contractors working on a fence near the Leon River made a disturbing discovery.
Unidentified remains
near the Leon River have been found
in the search for missing soldier
Vanessa Guillen.
After this news broke out, Robinson fled from his barracks on foot that evening and was found 4 miles from base in the early morning of the next day.
Overnight video shows the scene where Killeen police confronted the suspect. They say he ultimately took his own life, but the Army says there's another suspect in custody, a civilian, the estranged wife of a different man, who they say is a former Fort Hood soldier.
Aguilar remained in custody after her final interview and was later charged with tampering with evidence. She also confirmed that the female soldier Robinson killed was in fact Guillen.
Digo, Dios mío, pero ustedes sí están aquí, no las mataron, y a mi niña no. Al ser más preciado, me lo mataron. Me lo fueron y me lo enterraron en un río, mi niña. Yo quiero verla.
This was the same area near the Leon River that was searched by Army investigators on June 21st, and where plastic box remains were found. Witnesses also told investigators that Robinson had left the base on April 22nd with the heavy plastic box. Between the overwhelming evidence in favor of foul play and the slow action by investigators, questions arose throughout the Army's investigation. As a soldier in Fort Hood, YouTuber Lifeway Jordan attested to the Army's slow action not long after Guillen's disappearance.
I witnessed a shooting here on post myself. Across from my barracks, I heard at least 4 to 6 gunshots go off. When I looked out my window, like an hour or so later, the MPs finally showing up. The response time for things, I don't know when this information got out, but the response time to things is really like poor. The effort to respond to things is poor.
Because of the lack of urgency, Guillen's family has demanded a congressional investigation into the matter.
I want everyone on that base to be reported on. I want a congressional investigation to find out who lied and why.
The investigation was pushed even more so after they were left with little answers for 2 months.
They lied to our faces every single day that passed. Every single day, which is 2 months, more than 2 months. ¿Por qué no hicieron todo desde un principio? ¿Por qué hasta ahora están haciendo ese show de buscar a mi niña? ¡Cierra esta base! Muevo, cielo, mar y tierra, y esta base se cierra. Porque es una pudrición de base. Es una pudrición. Porque dice ay, que el mejor lugar ¿para qué? Para secuestrar, violar, matar.
The hashtag #ShutDownFortHood also began trending on social media. The world wanted to know why investigators hadn't solved her case quicker. Guillen's murder took place in the armory during the day. In this video, Guillen's family visits the armory where she worked. In her arms room, there is a window used to pass equipment through and to see all that happens inside. Robinson likely worked in an identical unit, with the window that granted similar access to potential onlookers. In a July 2nd episode of the podcast, Crime Stories with Nancy Grace, attorney Natalie Cowan recounted what the Army's Criminal Investigation Division told her about Guillen's last day.
The whole place was filled with blood. He took her body and put it in, I want to say a Pelican brief. He wheeled it out. He put it on the side. He went home. 6 p.m. comes around. He enters the base. They tell us that he did this crime between 10:23, 10:30, and 11:13 in the room. How can no one have seen this in the video cameras? How can no one have heard her screaming? There's no towels in there. There's no cleaning solutions in there. How did he? Oh, he went down across the building. They made it up, obviously. But I said, so he must have had to go out and got them, but there's no way he could have done that in 43 minutes. This is where I believe that there's some cover up here. There's so many holes. They continued, I want to say, to used confirmatory bias. It couldn't be him.
Guillen was also not the only soldier to have died at Fort Hood in recent years with few leads. One of them was even found during Guillen's search, Gregory Weedle. It's also been the site of multiple mass shootings, and many Army members there have been affiliated with prostitution rings on and off base. Beyond Fort Hood, Army bases across the country have struggled with crime. According to a 2018 crime report by the Army, a criminal offense occurs every 6 minutes and 11 seconds. Beyond the Army, the U.S. Armed Forces in general has a cover-up culture when it comes to internal issues. An anonymous A1C airman told Al Dia of just some of his experiences as a member of the Air Force.
There's a lot of toxic male buddy-buddy relationships within the Air Force, whereas I think the buddy-buddy system that they had going on helped them turn the blind eye, or they thought nothing of it because they knew this person and they would never suspect him of doing something.
In Guillen's situation, that culture in the Army cost her her life and forced her to endure instances of sexual harassment, according to her family.
She's no one's property! She's not a sexual object!
Before she disappeared, Guillen told her best friend and family she was being sexually harassed. There are many theories about who these members were, although it is unclear who they may be.
Mi hija me dijo, estoy siendo acosada sexualmente por un sargento. Quiero que se investigue a todos los sargentos. Ya se fueron dos. ¿Qué pensaban que no fueron los nombres? Miserables.
They would reportedly watch Guillen shower. She told her family that she feared retaliation if she told anyone of the misconduct. On the whole, sexual harassment is something that runs rampant in the Army. In the same 2018 report by the Army, it calculated a sexual assault happened every 4 hours and 25 minutes. Of the victims of those assaults, 93% of them were young women.
I've witnessed firsthand of newly found airwomen being sexually harassed by sergeants. You are a woman and you are thinking of joining the U.S. Armed Forces. Don't trust anyone that you have just met in the military because they will turn their backs on you if they need to.
In addition to being a young woman, Guillen could have also been a target because she was Latina.
I think what would be the most sought after or sexually harassed women are unfortunately the minorities because they are less likely to believe a minority over a Caucasian.
But her revelation inspired servicewomen from all backgrounds to share their sexual harassment experiences under the hashtag #IamVanessaGuillen.
I went to my chain of command and I told them what happened, and I was immediately told to bury this.
They had all the evidence of him saying, yes, I do remember that night. Yes, I did do that. And they still, for some reason, said there was not enough evidence. I chose, like Vanessa, not to report it. Like a lot of people say, the only difference between me and her story is that I walked away alive.
The Army will not rule on whether Guillen was sexually harassed or not, but her name has made its way to Washington, D.C. in the name of reform on sexual harassment in the military. On July 30th, the Guillen family made the cross-country trip to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump about planned legislation in Guillen's name. It would not require those experiencing sexual harassment to report to their superiors.
The hashtag #IamVanessaGuillen bill would have men and women have the confidence into reporting the sexual harassment.
They still don't have a clear and consistent answer as to why their sister and daughter was murdered on April 22nd. For now, they will continue to keep her name alive and fight for justicia para Vanessa.
She's very smart, competitive, responsible, respectful, amazing.
And when I'm in the soccer field, it's for you. When I run, it's for you. When I stand up in stages, it's for you. But remember, Vanessa, I love you. Always and forever.